After much delays, I am happy to announce that I am back with part 2 of my home services series. The reason for my delays was that I was moving and had no internet connection in my new place. It took a while, but the internet is here and all is good. So let's pick up where we dropped off last time. First things first is you need to do an update for your Ubuntu VM. So it's quite simple. Now, normally speaking, you could always use Proxmox and use this viewport here and run your commands, but as you can see, the resolution is kind of low. It's a little bit on the laggy side. What I like using is SSH. There are plenty of SSH clients out there. I use them all. They all have their pros and cons, but I like using PuTTY. So we're going to connect via SSH to our server here and get this exact same prompt. But first we need to find out the IP of this server. So to do that, it's quite easy. All you do is IP space A, and your IP is right here. So you can see here the ENS18 adapter, and you can see the IP is 192.168.1.176. So we're going to use that. 192.168.1.176, and we get the login prompt here. For the login prompt, what we're going to do is use the login we set up before. What I used was Z and Z as my password, and you can see we are inside Docker Ubuntu YouTube. Now the update commands for Ubuntu and actually most Linuxes are very simple. There are slight differences here and there, so depending on the flavor of Linux you're using, just read the man pages or search Google on how to update. But for Ubuntu it's quite simple. We're going to do a sudo apt update. It's going to ask for the password, so it's Z for my case. And as you can see, I don't have any updates. It says all packages are up to date right here. In the event you had updates, to update is very simple. So after you do the update command, you're going to run an upgrade command. So in Linux, you just press the up arrow key to get the last command, and we are going to change that to upgrade. And in my case, since there were no updates, there were no upgrades. But if I did have updates, Ubuntu would go ahead and upgrade all the packages. So it's best to start off with a completely updated system. Make sure all your packages are up to date so that there's no compatibility or any other issues like that. So here is the Portainer we installed last time. And the good thing is that, despite me taking so long with the second video, there is a silver lining to this, which is that Portainer had an update here. And I'm going to show you how I deal with these updates in a home environment. Again, this whole series of videos is going to be focused towards the home user. So please don't use what I'm telling you in a production environment. It's not really recommended and might cause problems in a production environment. But in a home environment, this is more of a set it and forget it type of a scenario for the most part. So you could always update your Dockers manually, but that's tedious. You have to look at it, you have to check it. Sometimes you don't want it to be updated, and that's understandable. If it's working, you shouldn't really touch it. But as with everything computing, updates are always recommended because not only do they fix security issues, which is quite critical, but also they add new functionality, new features, and performance enhancements. So updating your Docker containers is definitely worth it. Now the good news is that there's an automated method to updating all your Dockers, and I used to use Ouroboros. However, it is now deprecated and it's no longer maintained. So the alternative to Ouroboros, which is maintained, is Watchtower. And I'll have all the links to all the GitHub pages in the video description below. But if you go to the GitHub page for Watchtower, they actually have a simple one-liner of how to run it. So it's right here is you run it like that. Now the dollar is for your prompt. So you can see my prompt here is a dollar. So don't copy that dollar. But what you're going to do is you're going to copy everything beneath it like that. And we're going to paste it into our terminal here. And we're going to hit enter. So that's it. That's how quick it was. If we go back to Portainer and we hit an F5, you can see here now there's two containers, Watchtower and Portainer running. If you give Watchtower a little bit of time, it will do an update and it will update Portainer to the latest version. But for now, we're not going to worry about that. You can see Watchtower has no published ports. You really don't interact with it as such. It just sits there silently in the background and will check all your Docker containers, see if any updates are required, and if any updates are required, it will perform the updates. So we're done with the updating part. Next thing what I like doing is I like also installing another app called Dozzle, simply because it's easy with Dozzle to have a look at your logs for all your Docker containers. So what we're going to do is, so here's Dozzle. Again, Dozzle is very, very, very simple. Again, it's a simple one-liner. You have to be a little bit careful with this one-liner though, is because it publishes ports and you want to make sure that these are the ports you want to use. But in this case, we're going to use basically this. Okay. You could also use Docker Compose. There's many ways of getting this done. There's no right way, wrong way. I found that all ways generally accomplish the same thing. Whichever way you're comfortable with, I think that's the right way. So what we're going to do is just we're going to use the simplest way, which is to run the Docker container and to mount the Unix socket with volume to Docker sock. So copy, same thing in here. We're going to paste it. Right now is a chance that if you want to change any of the ports, you change it, but we're going to leave it at the standard ports. And that's it. Again, if we go back to our Portainer, we will see here that Dozzle is running. Now, when I first connected to my SSH, I checked my IP address. So let's check it again. So you can see here the IP address was 176 for this machine. So what we're going to do is 192.168.1.176. And the port that's issued for Dozzle was 8888. So we're going to just do that. So go back here. We're going to do colon 8888. And there we go. Dozzle is running. You can see the containers, the three containers we have here. And if you click, you can actually see the real-time logs. So Watchtower, you can see it's scheduled the first run for this time. Portainer, here are the logs for Portainer, and here are the logs for Dozzle itself. So again, Dozzle is really nice. I like it. It's a fairly nice tool for diagnosing all your Docker logs and trying to figure out, what kind of issues you have, if any. So Dozzle is done. The next thing I like doing is Netdata. Netdata is an absolutely amazing program that's used for monitoring all of my Linux machines. And Netdata has actually a very simple one-liner kickstart script that installs the dependencies and builds Netdata from its source code. So all we're going to do is we're going to hit this little nice copy button over here. We're going to go in our terminal here and we're going to paste that there and we're going to hit enter. And again, it's going to install a whole bunch of packages to get it to run. We're going to hit enter and let this go through its paces. Again, you can see there's a fair bit of packages. We're going to hit, again, enter for yes, and we're going to let it do its magic. Okay, so now that the installation is done, it will tell you here that you can access Netdata on this machine's IP and one 99999. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy that port. We're going to go back to here and we're going to check it right here. And as you can see, there we go. Netdata is installed. So what Netdata does is that it actually shows you in real time all your containers or your system's performance. You can see here the CPU utilization, all sorts of stats. Really, it helps me diagnose any potential issues in the system. Sometimes I find that it could be, the CPU is being consumed too much through certain processes. It could be disk, for example. The disk I/O are too much. Utilization is too high. There's a lot of backlog on my disk. You can see here the backlog is fairly low right now. And it really is a nice tool to help me diagnose the issues in my system. Plus, it is container aware, so you can see here it's detected already Dozzle, Portainer, and Watchtower. And if you click that, it'll tell you exactly, how much CPU, memory, and network activity the container is using. And you can hover over it and see exactly what's going on. You can see CPU usage was, fairly active right then, but then it died off, so on and so forth. You can see Portainer here, and you can see Watchtower over here also. So again, Netdata is a really, really nice piece of software that I use on all my Linux systems. It's actually a gem of a piece of software. Kudos to the Netdata developers, and if you do have a chance, support them in any way possible. All right, before we get started, there's a couple of maintenance tasks that you need to do in Portainer for the two new containers we created, specifically Dozzle and Watchtower. So let me explain what I mean. So we're going to click Dozzle, and we're going to click the duplicate and edit button. And we're going to go all the way down here we're going to scroll down and go to the restart policy. And when you create it via the command line, it never restarts, right? So what we want to do is we want to change it to unless stopped, right? And then we're going to deploy the container again. And we're going to hit replace. It's going to redeploy the container. And you can see now Dozzle is set in a way that if the container crashes or you reboot your server, it is going to start up automatically. Doing the command line way sets it to never, so you have to start it manually. This happened to me a couple of times before that I'd set everything up, had to reboot my server, and when I rebooted it back up, none of my services were up, and I was left scratching my head trying to figure out exactly what went wrong. But it was a simple thing, is unless stopped. Basically means that unless you manually stop it, it's going to always keep on restarting up again, whether it crashes or whether the server reboots again. Okay, we already did that to the Dozzle container. Now we're going to do the same thing to the Watchtower container. And we're going to go back here to restart policy, set it to unless stopped, and we're going to deploy the container again and hit replace. And it's done. And after installing Watchtower, you noticed that it ran the auto update script, and Portainer is now updated to the latest 1. branch. Okay, there's a newer version of Portainer which is 2. branch. You can upgrade to that if you want, but the 1. branch works just as fine for me, and especially for home users. Okay, so now that we've got these 3 Docker containers set up, our foundation is pretty much ready to go now. The grand idea is to have something like this, right? So I'm going to hit a new tab in Chrome, and suddenly you can see I've got a nice home page. It's all linked to my containers, and this is what we're going to do. And the app, or rather the server that's running this, is called Heimdall, right? So again, Heimdall is really, really nice. What we're going to do is we're going to set this up, and I'm going to show you how to set it up. It's fairly easy. And we're going to do it through the Docker setup, right? So again, you can see here, this is the Docker compose method, or you could use the Docker CLI. Either way works, but I think that the best way to do it is through the Docker compose method, which is basically a stack in Portainer, right? So we're going to go to stacks. We're going to add a stack. We're going to first call it Heimdall. And we're just going to go and copy and paste the whole script here. And we're going to paste it here. Now, there's a couple of things you want to change here. So all of this is fine. The container name is Heimdall. You've got your PUID and PGID. I'll explain that later in a bit. And of course, here you've got your time zone. The TZ is the time zone. So I'm going to set mine to America and New York. Okay. So I'm in the Eastern time zone. So New York is going to work just fine for me. Um, then we have the volumes, which is which we want the Heimdall information to be stored at. Now this is a little bit interesting because you can, depending on how you've got your home set up, if you've got a NAS or not, if you want to have data stored on the NAS. Now, normally speaking, I like doing that. I like putting all of my volumes on a NAS. This way, the NAS does the RAID and redundancy for all my data. I don't have to worry about it. But in your case, you might not have a NAS. So the right way to do it will be as follows. So we're going to go to the home directory. So cd home. Okay. This is in your Docker Ubuntu YouTube installation VM. And we're going to do a mkdir and we're going to call it uh, Heimdall. Okay. cd Heimdall. And it's an empty directory, and we're going to say the present working directory. Okay, so it gives us the full path of it. So we're going to take that and we're going to replace it with this. So delete all of that, and there we go. So basically, this is saying that the Docker folder called config is mapped to the system folder, which is home/z/Heimdall. So again, in your case, this will be completely different, but that's completely fine. So to find the PUID and PGID, we're going to go as ID and Z. Okay, so when you do ID and then your username, you're going to find out your GID and your UID. So your PGID and your PUIDs right here. So they're both 1,000 and 1,000, so it's completely perfect. It's good. The last thing you want to do is the ports. So again, these are the internal Docker ports on the actual container, and these are the ports that are exposed in the system. We can change it to whatever you want. Now on my server at home, I've got it set to 8888, simply because I'm also running a web server on my home Docker installation. So you can set it to whatever you want, but in this case, let's set it to 8888. And we're going to leave the SSL port as 8443. And that's pretty much it once we have done all of that. So let's just go over it again. So it just says Docker 2.1, the version, the services is Heimdall, the image we're going to use is from here, container name is Heimdall, the environment variables are listed below. We've set some variables for the the volumes, and the ports is here. And again, this is being set as restart unless stopped. And we're going to give it a deploy the stack. So Portainer is going to go in and basically create your whole Docker using these configurations. Now, it's a good thing that it gave me an error here. So you can actually see that the port 8888 is already being used by another service. Let's find out what it is. So if we go back again here, we go here, we go to the containers. Actually, you can see here Dozzle was using 8888, so we can't use that particular port. So we're going to change to 8889 just for the purposes of this video. So 8889. All right, and deploy the stack. There we go. Stack is successfully deployed. We go back to our containers. You can see here the stack is Heimdall, and it's completely up and ready to go. So after restarting that specific container, we go back here and there we go. So you can see Heimdall says that, there's absolutely no applications here. What we're going to do is we're going to add an application, and the title where we're going to use, first of all, is we're going to call it net data, right? So you select Netdata, it automatically picks up all of the application types, the logo, the color, a little bit of a preview, things like that. And then we're going to give it the URL of the system, which is going to be that right there, paste it right there, and we're going to test it, and it's successfully communicated with the API, and we're going to make sure it's pinned, so it's pinned to the main dashboard. Hit save, bada bing, bada boom. There we go. We hit F5, you click that, it takes you straight to Netdata. So we've pretty much built our first Heimdall bookmark. What we're also going to do is we're going to enable the config here simply because we hit save, because now what it's going to do is going to read uh, the API of Netdata on the server, and on your screen itself, on your dashboard, your Heimdall dashboard, it's going to show you the relevant statistics. So one warning and zero critical. If I click this, you can see here that there's actually one warning here also, right? And no critical. Okay, so the warnings, you can always read them and see what the warnings are, but in general, they're fine. So you can see here that inbound packets drop 20 packets. This completely fine. It happens from time to time with Proxmox, simply because I'm running backups and whatnot at night. So packets do get dropped sometimes, and it's fine. I haven't found any loss of service due to this. So there we go. So that's the first one. What else do we have on here? So we've also got a Dozzle. So we're going to install Dozzle. So I'm going to go here. Sorry, I'm going to go right there. I'm going to add, and I'm going to type in Dozzle. So Dozzle. Dozzle, automatically done. And the URL for Dozzle is right here. Copy that, paste it over here, and we're going to hit save. Now, Dozzle doesn't have any API, linking whatnot, so you're not going to see anything like that. But there are applications that do see it. So for Dozzle, if you click it, boom, it takes you straight to Dozzle, opens up in a new window. There are a couple of settings you can do for Heimdall. So for example, homepage search, I like to set this as yes, enable it, hit save, and the default search provider, you can choose whichever one you want. For me, I like using Google, hit save, and that's pretty much it. If we go back here, so suddenly you can see here, Google search is right here, so you don't even have to go to Google to search. You can search directly from here. So let's just say, uh, there we go, Eiffel Tower, boom, takes you right to Google. So this is honestly, Heimdall can be pretty much your homepage at home. So we've set up the two links here. What we can also do is we can set up Portainer also. So we're going to click this, we're going to hit add, and let's do Portainer. Click Portainer, and our URL for Portainer is right up here. Copy that, go back to Heimdall, click paste, hit save, and there we go, all done. You can also click this arrow here and move them around to the way you like. I like usually keeping Portainer number one because that's the most important thing I have. Click that and it's all saved and ready to go. Okay, so that's pretty much it for setting up all your basic skeleton on how to set up. Okay, so this is pretty much it for part two. We've set up the foundations for our Docker Home Services server. From now on, honestly, it's as simple as adding all the Docker templates or containers you want to your server. If they have Heimdall, widgets, even if they don't have Heimdall widgets, you can basically put any link you want on here. As you can see on my side, I've got pretty much all of my servers set up here, and you can see here in Pi-hole it gives you real-time blocking. For my sonar radar SAB, it shows me everything live, things like that. There's a lot of things that have APIs which Heimdall connects to, and you can see important information pretty much right there. A lot of them don't, like Proxmox. These are straight up links, but they do work, and it's really, really nice, and I like it a lot. This is pretty much my homepage. Now, how I set this up as a homepage in your browser is through a plugin. Unfortunately, there's no easy way to do it simply. So it's called custom new tab URL. Basically, I've installed that and configured it so that every time a new tab is opened, load this page here, right? So this page gets loaded. This is my other VM that I use, not the test VM for YouTube. So you can see here that it loads up everything perfectly and works peachy keen. So in the next steps, what I would like to do is install Guacamole. Guacamole is pretty much a Docker-based SSH client. It's absolutely amazing. I really like using it, and that's why I don't have much in my Huddy configuration. Like I don't have any saved sessions or anything because I've got everything through Guacamole here. So there we go. So you can see here, Guacamole is all set up for all my servers over here, and no issues at all. And I just pretty much use this to log in my server. So for example, if I want to log into Proxmox, here's my Proxmox server, clear ls htop. There we go. So very, very simple. Everything works just fine. No issues at all. And, I like this because it's very stable, very nice, and it gives me all the functionality of an SSH client, but through the web. And performance is absolutely, stellar. So as you can see here, some animations on the screen, not a lot of lag at all. Everything runs pretty much as if you're running it through PuTTY or any other native SSH client. Okay, so we are going to be using the Anzu Guacamole version of Guacamole, and the setup is very, very, very simple. You can see here, it's going to be this over here. We're going to copy that, and we're going to change a couple of things. I'm pasted this into Notepad just for easier changing. Uh, and the thing we want to change is here is the config path, right? So first thing what we're going to do is we're going to go into our SSH client. We're going to go to our home directory, so cd $home, all caps, and ls. You can see that here's the Heimdall directory we created. We're going to create a mkdir guacamole, cd guacamole, and we're going to hit pwd to get the full path. We're going to take that and we're going to replace it right over there. So that's pretty much it. The Docker is right there, port 8080 external, port 8080 internal, which is perfectly fine. We can verify that by going to all of our containers, and you can see here that the external port, which is on the left side, there's nothing that's 8080. The right side, which is the internal ports, there is one, but remember this, that this internal port is specific only to this Docker, which is Dozzle, right? But the external ports are common to the whole Docker server. So we can't have external ports replicated, but internal ports should be fine as long as they're in different Docker containers. So in this case, this looks perfectly fine. We're going to hit copy, go into our SSH client, hit paste, hit enter, and let it do its magic. So this container is fairly large. It has a lot of components in it to make it run. Apache Tomcat server, whatnot. So there's a lot of things here. So give it a little bit of time. It will finish fairly quickly. Okay, if we hit a F5 over here, you can see here that it's created it. It's called itself Hungry Shockley for, because we never specified a name for it. But specifying a name is very, very, very easy for this. Well, first thing we're going to do is we're going to stop the container, and we're going to hit edit, and we're going to call this guacamole, and we're going to deploy it again. So we basically restart it. So there we go, guacamole setup running. To log into guacamole, it's again very simple. It's 8080, port is 8080, so we're going to use the IP of the server, and we're going to go to 8080. And there we go. So the default password and login for Guacamole is guac admin, and password is the same thing, guac admin. There we go. We're all into guacadmin or guacamole rather. First things you want to do here is you want to go to the users and you want to basically create a new user, and we're going to call it Z password. Password is Z. Basically set up all your things so we can make him or this user a super admin, and we're going to hit save. Once that's done, we're going to click guac admin, and we want to delete it because that's the default password, right? So we're going to get rid of all the administration privileges for the system. Well, I mean, it won't let us do it because we're signed in as guac admin. So what we're going to do is we're going to log out. We're going to log in as Z and Z. Log in. Actually, it should be capital Z and Z. There we go. And once we're there, we're going to go to settings, users, the guac admin, and we're going to delete it. You don't want to have that standard guac admin over there simply because it's not secure at all, right? So we're going to hit home. Once that's done, we can basically add any of our connections. So in my case, my Proxmox server is 1.233. So we're going to do that. We're going to go to settings. We're going to go to connections. We're going to hit a new connection, and we're going to call it Proxmox, and it's a SSH connection. And the host name over here is 192.168.1.233, and the port is going to be 24. And if we want, we can set up our username and password over here. We're not going to do that for now. We're going to hit save. If we go back to home, Proxmox is right here. And there we go. It's connected straight up to Proxmox. And there we go. Basically, Proxmox is all set up. When we click here, it'll connect us, and you can see your login screen is right over here. So we can connect to Proxmox pretty easily, okay? Any system which has SSH capabilities, VNC capabilities, all sorts of things, Guacamole is your friend. You can basically connect here. You can see if we go to connections and a new connection, it does all of these. So it can do Kubernetes, RDP, SSH, Telnet, and VNC. Guacamole is actually really good for administering Windows systems also. So if you want to RDP over to your Windows servers, Windows desktops, you can easily do it through Guacamole. And it's all web-based, and it's very easy to use and administer. And I found the performance is good. It's multi-user capable, so it's actually a great project by the Apache Foundation. So there we have it. We have Hungry Shackle over here, which is stopped. We're going to just delete that, remove that because we don't need it anymore. And if we look at our dashboards, we've got one stack, 5 images, and 5 containers. The 5 containers are over here, and that one stack is for Heimdall, which is completely fine. And we've got 3 networks, which is the bridge, host, and none, which is also fine. And 1 volume, which is for the portainer data, which is completely fine also. So yeah, as you can see here, so far we've got the foundations of our home server set up. That should be the end of part 2. And in part 3, I'm going to show you how to install all the applications such as Sonar, Radar, SAB, and others also to enable you to have a nice Dockerized home environment. If you like this video, smash that like button. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. And if you're a subscriber, thank you very much, and I'll see you again next time.